welcome to Live from My Office. I never leave my office. You never know when a podcast is going to break out, like this one. And this is cool. I'm talking to my friends Mindy Rickles and Ed Mann. Been married for a long time. They have a beautiful family. Mindy Rickles is Don Rickles' daughter. A very funny stand-up comedian. Ed Mann is my lifelong buddy. And Ed is a tremendous jazz artist. As a matter of fact, Google up Ed Mann and buy his albums. Do you like jazz? They're tremendous. In addition to that, he's an entrepreneur, former great disc jockey, and a radio pal. So Ed Mann and his wife, Mindy Rickles, they join me in just a moment. Before we get to that, let me tell you what we're talking about. We're talking about Don Rickles. I only had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Don, but loved every second of it. Not only at my age of 62, how did that happen? Is he one of my comedy idols? He was one of a kind, and there will never be another like him, and that's not a cliche. I opened for him a couple of times in Detroit, Atlantic City. Could not be a sweeter guy. And yes, the stories are true. I saw him without his pants on because he was true old show business. And by that, I mean, you don't put your pants on until you're about to go on stage because you don't want to mess up the crease. You don't want to wrinkle them. I'm not kidding. I saw Don walk in. He's sitting there in his robe. Oh, close your knees there, sir. But that wasn't as funny as his act. And I shouldn't say act because he's never really had an act. He has his thing. And his thing was to come out and just level you. And I can tell you, if you've ever heard anybody talk about it, there's no greater joy in comedy than being insulted by Don Rickles. They're right. And I had the opportunity a couple of times, as I said, of him calling me a hockey puck, telling me to get out of show business if I ever get in, and a few other things. Loved him. And the amazing thing is, everything else you heard, if you pay attention to this business, is true. You couldn't find a sweeter man. So when people said it makes no sense that he and Bob Newhart were friends, it makes total sense. I spent just a little bit of time with Bob Newhart as well, but he's exactly the same as the guy you see on TV and all those hit series, and the guy that's still out there doing it now, approaching his mid-90s. Bob Newhart and Don Rickles, best friends. That's part of the discussion as well. Glad you're here on Live from My Office, and of course, I hope you listen to the radio show as well, where we talk about this, comedy, and a whole bunch of other things. Politics, yep, but I'm the last sane talk show host in America. So try the radio show as well, or stream it wherever you can, because we do that every day from 5:30 to 9 in Chicago on the Big 89 WLS and live wherever you stream as well. All right, let's do this. Let's get right to it. Conversations with Don Rickles' daughter, Mindy, and her husband, Ed Mann. And we're talking about Don, a great honor at the National Comedy Center, and a brand new documentary about he and his best friend, Bob Newhart. Now, on Live from My Office. Oh, and by the way, stick around after. I got a couple of things you're going to want to hear before we're done from Rickles' great late night moments. We'll do that when we're finished. Now, here's Mindy, Ed, and me. Of all the cheap thrills I get, none is better than this. And I don't mean Mindy, I mean Ed. It is my friend's Mindy Rickles. She's lovely, talented, and delightful, and Ed's not so bad either. And they join us live from Los Angeles. Good morning, Mindy, and I'm sorry you had to get up for this.
Good morning, Steve. I was just in the middle of milking a cow, but it's fine.
Good. Ed said you were going through an Amish phase. I didn't know that was actually.
I am. We have a covered wagon. We got rid of the Tesla for a covered wagon.
Yeah, we don't pasteurize anything.
Right.
They're joining me not because they love me, even though they do. They're joining me because there's been two very cool things that have happened in short order here. And we talked about both of them on the regular show before. But here on Live from My Office and on the Big 89 WLS, let's talk first about the National Comedy Center and the great honor of your dad, Don Rickles, and the stuff that you guys put together and donated. Mindy, is this emotional? Is this triumphant? What is this for you?
Yeah, no, it's really exciting because it's been kind of a long way coming, and it's in Jonestown, New York, which ironically...
Jamestown, actually.
Jamestown.
Yeah.
Well, much like Jonestown,
very bad happened.
much like Jonestown, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
have been a downer, Steve. No, it's in Jamestown, New
Slightly
York,
different
which is the birthplace of Lucille Ball.
Right.
Turley, I'm
Right,
sorry.
right.
And it's great because they have stuff from Carl Reiner has stuff from there, and they have a lot of stuff from Laugh-In. And what we did was we gave them, a lot of my dad's tuxedos that he wore on stage.
Sweet.
There's so many press clippings from like 50 years of his different jobs
Sure.
and places he played, and all of that. So a lot of really good, so many photo albums through the year.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't your mom put a lot of that together initially?
Yes,
So tell me about that.
Yeah, my mother was very meticulous, the opposite of me. Yeah. She was like, I could work, in a construction yard. Everything is everywhere, but she was very organized. And every single press clipping, every single, thing, whether he was doing a show, whoever was opening for him, like on postcards in Lake Tahoe, and she would put them on wooden plaques. So we had a collection. It's really, fun to see from then.
I'll bet.
And they even have insults from never before heard insults. They were
Really?
probably just insults to me that now are being given to the public.
Yeah,
But
these
no,
are like audio clips. They're
never
all digitized.
born.
Yeah.
Yeah, that like when the people come in, they might be insulted, like they might hear my dad's voice going, "You gonna wear that jacket?" Stuff
That
like
is
that.
fantastic. I love
Yeah,
that.
so that's kind of fun. That
No.
I think, people would really enjoy to get sort of engulfed in the whole experience.
It is.
So-
It is your life story because this is your dad, and you grew up with him, and you had the perspective of Don Rickles, the superstar, greatest comedian ever, in my view. But you also had dad at home, and in my limited path crossing, if you will, with Don, he couldn't have been sweeter, couldn't have been nicer. I had a chance to open in Atlantic City and Detroit, and see him sitting in his robe backstage, have him tell a couple of great stories, come out, insult me. A lot of people probably heard it before, and Ed, you and I have talked about this. Getting insulted by Don Rickles, I mean, that's as good as it gets in comedy.
Yes, it's a gift.
It was like a badge of honor, but he didn't dare do that to me.
Well, but see, I don't know that you and I ever talked about this. So it's hard enough when you meet your future father-in-law. So when you and Mindy are dating and you meet Don for the first time, or Don and Barbara, what was that like?
Well, yeah, briefly, it was a big dinner because as I learned later, it was always a big dinner. It wasn't like, let's just the four of us go out to dinner. It was always like at a restaurant with the owner of the restaurant, with the accountant, with the brother-in-law. Like, it was all these people. And it finally, after like 20 minutes, it got around to going, so, hi, Ed, tell us a little about yourself. And it was so bizarre because I honestly thought I was the reason for the dinner was so they could meet Mindy's new boyfriend, Ed.
Sure.
And which I guess is really what it was. That's simply,
Well, not really. No,
No, I
it
guess
was
not.
a meeting with the accountant.
that's true. Yeah.
No,
I was there to take notes.
yeah. No, at the end they would
Good
go,
man.
"Who's this guy?" To the right of me, 4 people down.
But he was very sweet. He was always very kind to me. He rarely, if ever, had a bad word to say about anything in regard to me. And I think that was just so I wouldn't walk away and he'd be stuck with a bill.
So,
Yeah, he loved Dad. He did.
So your mom and dad, and Barbara was a beautiful and amazing woman, in her own right, obviously. But your mom and dad, what did they think of Ed? I don't want to make this about Ed, but I'm fascinated now. What did they think of Ed?
Great for me, Steve. I'll be in the other room napping. No, they thought Ed was great. They really didn't understand what Ed did for a living.
Please.
I said he was in radio, and that
Uh-huh.
was very abstract for them. I would have them come to my car, when I was going to SC and listen to his, what's it called? Your
Air checks.
Air
checks,
checks.
yeah.
And they'd hang over the car for about 10 minutes to listen. My dad be like, "Is that about it?" It was like, I was like delirious. Like, listen, he's on the radio, and they were like, all right, Mindy. But no, they knew he was a great guy, and they knew he loved me, and he was going to be able to support me for about a year.
Sure.
And then,
And it was,
yeah. So no. So 26 years later, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I
We're
think
good.
things have worked
I
out.
think we're good.
I think you're out of the probation period. So
Right, exactly.
here's one of the things that maybe fans don't understand about Don Rickles. And I just think in something as flighty as show business, which, we are all in because we have no other skills,
Right.
the measure of a life is the loyalty of friends. And when your dad passed, people lined up to say great things. But there's people now, after this great honor at the National Comedy Center, who just can't wait to line up and hope you ask them, what did you think of Don? I mean, that should make you feel great.
Oh yeah. And it's ironic because actually Judd Apatow and my dad's manager Tony
Yep.
Opatisano and his partner Michael Ganera did a incredible documentary that just came out on on the New Yorker. They have videos on there called Bob and Don: A Love Story, and it's actually about the relationship between my dad and Bob and the trips, the home videos that no one's
The
ever
travel.
seen before of the travel, exactly, of my parents and Ginny and Bob. And they had, the best time when they would go. They traveled all over the world, Europe, China. I mean, they had a great time. And they were like actually, Ginny and my dad were very similar, and Bob and my mom are very similar because Bob and my mom handled all the traveling, all the reservations, and Ginny and my dad sat on like a piece of luggage, and you could have left them behind in an airport, in Nairobi, and they wouldn't have
They'd still be
noticed.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
They'd still be sitting there.
Um,
But they got along so great. So it was just such a great, it was real, Bob was in it and Ginny, which was really wonderful before she passed away recently.
Right.
She was able to be in it. I was in it. Their son Tim Newhart was in it.
That's sweet.
So it was really touching, and it
And
came
again,
together beautifully.
And again, it's the New Yorker website. It's also on YouTube. Let me play a couple of clips here because this gives you a little bit of it as well. Bob Newhart on his best friend.
This is a doormat that Don sent us. Normally people just send the Newharts, but of course he had to have his name on it. Best friends with the Rickles. Even toward the end, the last week or 10 days, it was keep my name alive. And that's what we're doing today. We're keeping his name alive.
You guys, both of you address this if you would. As Don knew the end was coming, did he really think he wouldn't be revered as the Mount Rushmore of comedy, as one of the greats? Is that just one of the insecurities we all have, I guess?
Yeah, I think, he always, whenever he went on stage, he had a little bit of nerves and he had a little bit of insecurity, which is amazing after all those years. I mean, one of the last shows he did in Los Angeles was a big show, and Steve Martin came and Martin Short came. And after the show, they came backstage, but my dad was whispering in my ear, about Steve Martin. Was he laughing? Was he laughing?
Wow.
So he still felt that way, but he really did say, I mean, he's kidding, but not kidding. Keep my name alive. So he really, no, he wanted to be remembered. And I think when he was, the focus of honors and he was still very surprised and thrilled and very honored, to have that happen.
Yeah, we did a few things after he passed, and then after, of course, Barbara passed, that we thought would be really appropriate. One was, of course, the National Comedy Center, which is like this great repository for like all sorts of things. Joan Rivers' papers are there,
Yep.
George Carlin's. It's really something. And Mindy and I have to get out there at some point and see that. Of course, with lake effect snow, I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but it'll be soon. It's kind of known for that. But the other was an auction that we did of just piles of memorabilia that either the Comedy Center wasn't going to use, or that our kids, were like, okay, that's fine. But the fans would love, like laminated
Sure.
invites to various club dates and things of that sort, with Lola Falana or what have you. Things that the fans would love. And that stuff, his bound scripts.
Also, excuse me, Excuse me, honey.
Pardon me.
Yeah, that's a repartee. He had, with the Apollo flights with the astronauts,
Right.
he had done recordings for them of his act and, talking to them.
Wow.
And so they were actually able to take those in space and listen to those while they were, floating around the
Sure.
aircraft.
Right. And so we had like signed autographs of those astronauts,
Yes.
and that was great for the fans. So that stuff went out. Ethan's got one of them in his room, but
Our son, yeah.
our son Ethan. But a lot of that went out, to the fans. So we were really, really happy with that. And then finally, it's all of this that we're doing now. The publicity and the ability to get people to get to know him a little bit better. And that's what the film, I think is going to be.
Yeah.
That's going to live forever. That'll live forever.
And I want to play another clip from that, as a matter of fact. Your dad and your father-in-law here, Don Rickles, talking about friendship in comedy.
The basic thing in friendship, with all the comedy, I adore him, and I know he adores me. And the great thing about it is that our values are the same. We believe in the same things, and we laugh at the same things.
Mindy, when you think of those trips that they took together, and as you guys, I'm sure you went as families occasionally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It wasn't weird for you to have all these famous people around, but did they come to the house, or was it always when he was working?
No, my parents would have these big break the fast parties after Yom Kippur, and tons of comics would come. Johnny Carson and Jack Carter, Red Buttons. And then there would be others that would come in that would be exciting, like Ricardo Montalban or Sidney Poitier or Telly Savalas.
Dick Van Dyke.
So it was
amazing.
The people I grew up with, I always said to Ed, it's hard to find friends, even at my age, it's hard to find friends that are as interesting
right,
and as exciting and as funny as all of these people were, because these were very special people. And, you want to find that in your own life, because it was such an exciting time, really, to be in.
And he stayed relevant and hip, all the way to the end. And I think part of it was the attraction for younger comics was, well, there's nobody like this guy. And
that's right.
I hear people all the time that go, well, you could never have a Rickles today. You could have Rickles, but you're never going to have somebody trying to do what he did. And I also, I bristle a little, people go, well, no one could do his act. I never saw your dad as having an act. And Mindy, you're a great stand-up. You know this. You have things that are going to hit. And Don had lines that he knew would hit. But I don't know that he ever did the same show twice, did he?
No. And I think his interactions with the audience, were different depending on who was out there. But he was so quick. Even when he would do the Friars roast, which are on YouTube, he didn't know what he was going to say. If they were honoring, whoever they were honoring, Frank Sinatra, he didn't go up there with like notes.
Right.
I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. He really went up there like cold turkey. I'm going to and that was his favorite thing to do, much more so even doing a specific act. He was the best at that. And once he got, on a roll, forget it. He was the best. And
I can't tell you how difficult that is, to just muster up the courage to do that. If you love comedy and the history of comedy, people point, and rightfully so, they point out Jack Benny and the pauses. Well, the idea that you're going to walk into a Vegas showroom and have the guts to just go up and go, all right, who's out here tonight?
Exactly.
And then at the end, he always ended with, listen, we're here to laugh, not here to hurt anybody. He really was sensitive to that, right? He didn't want anybody going home with hurt feelings.
No. He made a point of saying, I'm really, like, he had a song, I'm a nice guy, because he really didn't want to offend people. And obviously they saw that in him. He wasn't like so many comics, even then and today, that are very cutting and nasty. He was never that way, and he was never perceived that way, which I think if he had been, he wouldn't have had a career that spanned like 60 years.
100%. Bob and Don, A Love Story. It's Judd Apatow's short doc on YouTube, and also the New Yorker website is the base for it. Let me play one other thing here This is Newhart, the old Dean Martin roast. This is Newhart giving his best friend a roasting, as only someone who loves you can.
Don is my best friend, which just gives you some idea of the difficulty I have in making friends. But Don has not done that well in television. He's had 4 series now. The last one, a couple of Dons received a -4 Nielsen rating. This means not only there's no one watching, but several people without TV sets had heard about the show and said if they got one, they wouldn't watch it.
Which is a fabulous joke. It's hilarious.
Bob was so quick, and his humor was so different than my dad's. I mean, when Bob, my dad would be talking nonstop or whatever, but Bob, it's like when he opened his mouth, it was really thought out. It was so clever. I mean, he just was really, really funny and really funny. They were both really funny at home. And, there are a lot of comics that are just, they have their act and maybe they're so funny on stage, or they swear a ton and the audience screams. And then off stage, they have like no personality. I mean, they were both. Bob, in a much quieter, conservative way, was hysterically funny.
Yeah.
Hysterically funny.
Yeah, 100%.
And so sharp.
I'll tell you one thing about the competitive nature of them, too, which is something they didn't really highlight so much in the film, but it was there. And here I was helping, Mindy with the house and all that after, her parents passed. And there were all of these bound scripts, which were really cool. And if, a lot of people, I think, that do television work and film work, they're given the scripts and then they bind them, like it's a book, and they put them on the shelf and it looks lovely in a library. And of course, Don had a huge collection of them. And a lot of them, like I said, went to fans and things of that sort. And I stopped by at the Newharts every once in a while to drop off a picture here and there, because it was on the way home. It was literally a block away. And Bob would say, so, what was going on over there? I said, well, I found all this, the scripts, Bob, and there's, a big bunch of them. Oh, how many? I said, oh gosh, there must be about 60 or more. He goes, oh, I've got 190.
Yeah. That was the big thing. The Bob had all those shows, and my dad, he had CPO Sharky, which did well, but it was like, all those shows that Bob had.
I heard Bob on a rerun of a Conan podcast the other day. You guys confirm this story if you know it to be true. But it was Bob, and who's funnier telling a story than Bob Newhart, right? But
right.
He said when Jenny met your dad, Don, for the first time, Bob had sort of set her up, like, the act's a little rough and all of that. So they're sitting there, and it's time to go watch the show and to go to the competitive side, which reminded me of this story. Bob made sure that Conan knew he was playing the big room and Don was playing the lounge. So they get up to walk to the show, and she said, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. He's such a sweet man, Don Rickles. He misses his family. He's not crazy about being on the road. He goes, now, honey, what you're going to see is a little bit of don't ruin this for me. And I think if I remember the line correctly, he gets on stage and he says, yeah, I just want you to know the stuttering idiot from Chicago's here and his drunken wife from New Jersey's with him.
Right. Yeah, no, it was like she's a hooker from Bayonne.
That was it, the hooker from Bayonne.
If I can quote one of the greats, Shakespeare and my dad. She's a hooker from Bayonne. Yes.
Oh, it's so
That's
great.
what it was.
Well, yeah. you guys, it's a wonderful thing that you've done here, and I know it took a lot of work to get all this stuff together, but I know how pleased that your mom and dad would be and are about this, and I hope people take the time to watch the mini doc from Judd Apatow as well, because these guys were real life best friends, Bob Newhart and Don Rickles, and it's just cool. It's cool to hear you talk about them, and I hope you have all the sweet memories in the world, Mindy, and Ed as well.
Thank you so much,
Steve.
Steve.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
And by the way, my friend Mindy, as I said, tremendous stand-up comic, and she's on social media. Mindy Rickles pretty much everywhere. I think is Ed of Mann. I think I remember that right.
That's the Twitter thing, but we don't do Twitter that much anymore for some reason.
For obvious reasons, right?
But, but Facebook, I'm all over Facebook. It's Mann Eddie, or Eddie Mann, and Mindy's there too. Mindy Rickles. She's got a great page there.
And Live from My Office folks and the radio folks, you might remember Ed was on earlier this year talking about his latest album with the Mann Sextet. He's a tremendous jazz artist with a great Patrice Russian on there. Hey, there's a nice Christmas gift, standard issue. Go out and get it.
Here you go.
That's right.
Look it up.
All right, Mindy, I get up at 3:30 in the morning. I'm going to call you just to say hi.
Please do, Steve. Please
Can't
do.
wait for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Love you guys. Be well. Happy holidays, and thank you for sharing all of this.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful Christmas.
Love those guys and love Don Rickles, and I'm guessing if you're still with us, you do too. Stick around. We're going to play a couple clips for you here from the best of Late Night with Don in just a second. First, charitably, it's the season of giving, and I highly encourage you to contribute in any way you can to an organization that matters to you. Could be something that touches your heart. Could be simple as your local church. Or it could be making sure you don't walk by those kettles for the Salvation Army. But whatever you can do to give, I hope you will. And we make a habit of not picking out one charity and just focusing on that. But we like to highlight charities, certainly. But for now, I'm telling you again, just give as much as you can. And if you don't have any money to give, don't feel guilty about it for a second. But think about volunteering your time or your talents, because charities need that as well. All right, couple of clips for you. Rickles was unbelievable on late night TV forever. And I'm going to play two things for you. First, the best of Don Rickles and Jimmy Kimmel.
I always say to young people, try to be different. If you're different, you have a chance. Like you're different, because nobody knows what the hell you are. There's still a dumbbell like I left you. Shut up, Jimmy. Try not to. Don't be cute.
That was funny, Jimmy.
I was never mean-spirited, thank God. That's why I'm on this show, because I skyrocketed. Anyway, give me a minute, because everything I say, I did in my room, and I laughed my ass off. Anyway.
That's good, but maybe nobody better than Letterman. Letterman loved Rickles. It seemed to be the only time Dave was happy. Here's a little bit of Don and Dave.
Do you watch your diet?
Yeah, sure. I have a steak once in a while, and you know what they always say, isn't that right? All the you don't have to be that attentive. You don't have to be that. Don't give me that. He gives me that crap like he's interested. I mean, I'm 81, but this isn't gone yet.
Yeah,
for crying out loud.
Look at this. Paul said 81. He looks at.
I should talk, though, right?
Yeah, you little midget with glasses.
Will you? Hey. No, it's all right. Because he means it with the love. You mean it with all the love, right?
No, I don't.
No. No love.
I'll be honest, I never liked you.
No love.
Well, there you have it. That's why I love Don Rickles. Always have, always will, and Bob Newhart, too. And don't forget that Judd Apatow doc. You just Google that up and you can find it's on the New Yorker website. A short tribute to Bob and Don, a love story. And if you can make it to the National Comedy Center, it's going to be a pilgrimage for me. It's in the middle of nowhere in Jamestown, New York. It's where Lucille Ball was born. But that's where that new Don Rickles comedy archive will live forever. And if you love to laugh, it's a great thing to do. Thank you for listening to the radio show, 5:30 to 9 on WLS every weekday morning, and streamed wherever you stream radio or pick it up on any of the radio apps. And also, thank you for listening to Live from My Office and sharing it with your friends. It's the greatest gift you can give in the Christmas season. Tell a friend or a family member how they can get Live from My Office. And we'll see you next time, or we'll see you on the radio. I'm Steve Cochran. Thank you, Miranda. Miranda filling in for Ross Cochran this time again. Doing a great job and taking me for all the money I have. And producing this episode of Live from My Office. See you next time.
30 years plus on the airwaves, you have turned your dial to me. Now you're tuned into my podcast. It's Live from My Office, Steve. From Ithaca, New York, to Carolina South, W. Cochran, Steve. From Minneapolis and then Chicago twice, top-rated shows achieved. Sit back, relax, and now listen to my show. When or wherever you are, 'cause you're on the go. A-list celebs with some laughs and great info. Live from my office, the Steve podcast show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No better place to be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Subscribe and like for free. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Live from my office, Steve. So glad you're with me. It's live from my office, Steve.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.